everybody, this is Zaxter99. This is going to be my drive to work number 8. And today I'm going to be talking about the NFL football coming up here soon. And I'm going to go ahead and concentrate today on a hypothetical situation, a trade situation that could never or will never happen. Just like back in the days of the Cowboys dynasty, back in the 90s, everybody talked about back then what would happen if the Cowboys traded Emmitt Smith with the Lions for Barry Sanders. Everybody talked about how much better Barry Sanders would have been behind the Cowboys' offensive line that they had that opened up holes for Emmitt Smith. But it was really kind of a silly talk and silly trade discussion because Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith were completely different. They were cut from two different kinds of running back completely. However, I do agree that Barry Sanders, had he been behind the same offensive line as Emmitt Smith, would have probably got even more yards, because his offensive line that he made yards from, he made yards out of nothing. Where if he had those big holes that Emmitt Smith had a lot of times, he would have easily, got way more yards than he did. And he probably would have broke Eric Dickerson for the most yards in a season. I don't dispute that. But Emmitt Smith was a legend himself. Emmitt Smith was one tough hombre who could see holes from, he could see and make cuts, and he used his power to run people over and run under people. Emmitt Smith was a beast. I never earned more respect for Emmitt Smith than that time he had broken ribs against the Giants. And he was still jumping over the piles and out there playing with broken ribs. I think he was in the playoffs. Emmitt Smith, though, is amazing. But what I want to talk about now is another trade. What if another trade happened between the same two teams, the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions? I think you guys already know where I'm going with this. If you are a Cowboys fan, this is who I really want to hear from. I want to hear from everybody. Every fan out there. I'd like to know, have your 2 cents in a comment down below. But specifically, if you're a Cowboys fan, would you trade Dez Bryant straight over for Calvin Johnson? And if you're a Detroit Lions fan, specifically, would you trade your Calvin Johnson, Megatron, would you trade him straight across for the younger, very emotional Dez Bryant? Now let's go ahead and talk about each of these guys really quick. Calvin Johnson he didn't have that many yards last year, but he didn't play as many games either. If he plays 16 games this year, he will probably beat Dez Bryant. It'll be interesting to see. We all remember a couple of years ago when Dez Bryant was talking the talk about how he was going to outperform Calvin Johnson in their big game against the Lions. And Dez Bryant hardly got the ball thrown at him. And I think Dez Bryant wound up with like 80 yards. And Calvin Johnson didn't say a word all week, the week before, about how he would outperform Dez. And Calvin Johnson just went out there and played, and I think he wound up with like 329 yards in one game. Unbelievable. I think that game shut Dez Bryant up pretty quick about how he's better than Calvin Johnson and all that. But a legitimate argument can be made now for how good Dez Bryant really is compared to probably one of the best receivers since the year 2000 for sure, and one of the best receivers of all time. Calvin Johnson is definitely a big, monstrous beast who can jump up, who can catch one-handed footballs like nobody I've ever seen. Calvin Johnson is a big target and a big receiver who knows how to catch the ball in traffic. I have seen Calvin Johnson catch more balls with 3 defenders on him than anybody I can ever remember since I started watching football. I respect the hell out of Calvin Johnson, and a lot of people like his, no-nonsense approach. He's completely different than Dez Bryant, who is very emotional and volatile and, can blow up at any time. Now, a lot of people like Dez Bryant and his emotional attitude. They say all that does is show that he's got a passion for the game. But are you really going to tell me that Calvin Johnson don't have a passion for the game with the way he performs week in and week out? I'm not going to argue against Calvin Johnson's passion for the game when he performs like he has since he came into the NFL. But still, a lot of people on the other side of the coin continue to, point the finger at Dez Bryant and say he's a hazard to the game. Say he could cost his team penalties and yards and, walking off the field. That game that he walked off the field a couple years back, for his emotional outburst. A lot of people say Dez Bryant hasn't matured yet. Even though I think you could counter-argue that and say he has matured a lot since he first came into the NFL. He still screams and hollers on the sideline. He's still, but I don't think this is a Terrell Owens kind of guy. I don't think this is a guy that's just give me the ball all the time, a selfish player like so many of the, the big receivers have been over the years. I really think Dez Bryant really just wants to win. He don't care if he only gets 2 catches in a game or the ball thrown at him 3 times in a game, as long as the Cowboys are winning. If they're running the ball and running it all over the team, he's going to be happy as hell. He's not going to be over there mad because he didn't get a touchdown or because he didn't get the ball thrown his way. If Terrence Williams is catching the ball for, 20 receptions for 300 yards and the Cowboys kick the other team's butt, Dez Bryant ain't going to be mad about that. Maybe Terrence Williams or Cole Beasley or whoever is getting all the balls thrown their way because Dez Bryant is triple covered or double covered the whole game. As long as the Cowboys win, I really believe that Dez Bryant is happy with that. I do believe he's a team player. He's just an emotional team player. But as a Cowboys fan, at this point, I would not trade Dez Bryant for Calvin Johnson, even though Calvin Johnson might be able to come to the Cowboys and get more yards, more touchdowns, and be a bigger beast. There's a couple of reasons I wouldn't do that. Has nothing to do, I'm talking about, would you do an even trade? We're not even talking contracts or money or anything like that. Let's just assume it was an even trade. Both contracts were, don't even worry about that. Neither contract hurt the other team more or anything like that. Just an even swap. Nobody pays any more than they already have for their guy. And you had to keep the receiver, until the receiver retired or had a career-ending injury. And that's exactly why I would not trade Dez Bryant straight across for Calvin. Calvin Johnson is not that old yet, but Calvin Johnson is what, 5-6 years older than Dez Bryant? I believe so. I'm not real sure. I'd have to check the age of Calvin Johnson. But I know he's at least a few years older than Dez Bryant. I think he's more like 6 or 7 years older. So 5 or 6 anyway. Something like that. And that is a big reason why I would not trade Calvin Johnson. Trade for Calvin Johnson as a Cowboys fan. Another reason I would not trade straight across for Megatron is because right now Tony Romo and Dez Bryant have a very, very good chemistry of working together. They know what each other's thinking. Dez Bryant knows when he's going to get the ball, what he has to do to get the ball. He knows exactly where the ball is going to be from Tony Romo, and Tony Romo knows Dez Bryant. They have a very good working chemistry together, whether it be in the huddle, on the sideline, or in action when they need a play. By trading for Calvin Johnson, you risk that chemistry. What if Calvin Johnson went to Dallas, Dez Bryant went over to the Lions, and then all of a sudden, Tony Romo just can't connect with Calvin? It takes him a full season to even get half the chemistry that him and Dez have. That's why I wouldn't do it. I think Calvin Johnson would still catch the ball. I don't think he'd have a hard time fitting into the Dallas offense. I think it'd be pretty quick. But still, there is that chance. And that's a chance I would not want to take. I mean, could you imagine Calvin Johnson going to the Cowboys and looking like Roy Williams from the Lions a few years ago? I mean, Roy Williams and Tony Romo never could get it going together. And before that trade, but when that trade happened, before they started playing together, I thought Roy Williams was going to go over there and tear it up with Terrell Owens on the other side. I figured Roy Williams was going to get everything. I figured Terrell Owens would still be double covered and Roy Williams would be catching the ball like a maniac. And that just never happened. So a lot of you people that think Calvin Johnson would tear it up with a quarterback like Romo or an offensive line like the Cowboys have or whatever, you might want to think again. It is possible that Megatron could go over to Dallas and, I don't think he'd look as bad as Roy Williams did, but there is a chance that he wouldn't look quite as good or spectacular as he does right now with the Lions. Who knows? I don't know. You could also make an argument that Tony Romo can make average receivers look really good. Look at what, receivers like Laurent Robinson look like. He's an average receiver. When he played for Dallas a few years ago, he looked like a superstar. And same thing with Patrick Creighton. Creighton looked like a stud with the Cowboys and Romo. When Romo first came, in 2006, 2007, I even think even 2008, Miles Austin is another one that became a superstar with Tony Romo throwing him the ball. And I don't think he ever looked quite as good with the other teams that he's been on. He's on Philadelphia now. We'll see how he looks. But he had by far his best 2 seasons with Tony Romo throwing him the ball. So I think Tony Romo can make a pretty average receiver look great. Laurent Robinson for one, Miles Austin for another one, etc. So, there's a good chance that Megatron could come to Dallas and be just as big a superstar or better than what he is currently in Detroit. But still, as a Cowboys fan, I wouldn't do it. I would not trade Dez Bryant straight across, mainly because Dez Bryant, I kind of like his fiery attitude. Even though some may see it as immature, I kind of like his fiery passion for the game, how he gets all fired up, and I believe it rubs off on some of the other players on the team and is contagious and helps the Cowboys win. I don't have anything against Calvin Johnson's more silent, behavior or personality, but I don't know. I kind of like seeing Dez Bryant get fired up and get mad, and when he gets when he gets a penalty against him or whatever that takes away a good catch or whatever. I just love seeing that kind of fire in a guy, and that's exciting to me as a fan. But mainly, Dez Bryant's younger. I know he's younger, however many years it is. And I think he's stronger than Calvin Johnson. He's not as big. He's not quite as big. He may not have quite as much talent as Calvin Johnson, but it's close if it's not exactly there. But he's younger. I think he's stronger. He has an ability to break away easier than Calvin Johnson does. Some of you may argue with that. But also, the big reason is, I just wouldn't risk the chemistry that him and Tony Romo have. I wouldn't risk losing that to try to be greedy and try to get somebody in better, because it might backfire in the Cowboys' face if you try to do that. Like I say, this is a ridiculous trade that would never happen anyway, But I'd love to see you guys chime in and respond down below. I have a feeling that there isn't any or many Detroit Lions fan that would trade Megatron for Dez either. There might be. I'd love to know if you're a Detroit Lion fan and you would trade Calvin straight across for Dez Bryant. I'd love for you to put that down in the comments below. Let me know. Either way, you know, I'm really looking to hear from passionate Cowboy fans and passionate Detroit Lion fans about that trade. What would you do? And everybody else, you know, that loves football, let me know as well. You know, if you're a Cowboys fan, would you do it? If you're a Lions fan, would you do it? What do you think about that trade? It's one of those things that's never going to happen, but it's kind of fun to talk about, you know, because you're definitely talking about two of the best receivers in the game today. Granted, there's a lot of good receivers right now, but I don't think anybody could argue that Calvin Johnson and Dez Bryant are both in the top 5 easy right now. So let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think of the trade between the Lions and the Cowboys. Dez Bryant straight across for Megatron. Should the Cowboys do it? Should the Lions do it if such a trade would happen? And what do you think would happen if that trade did happen? You know, would Dez Bryant do as well as Calvin Johnson over in Detroit? And would Megatron outperform Dez Bryant if he played as a Cowboy? Would he have any problems connecting with Tony Romo chemistry-wise? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I think this could be a very, very interesting video discussion and create some very interesting comments down below. Please remain respectable. Please, you know, don't be ignorant and disrespect people and stuff like that on my channel down in the comments below, or it will get your comment removed and possibly get you banned. So just remain respectable, keep it fun, basically, is what I'm saying. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. This has been Zaxter99 with my Drive to Work number 8. Calvin Johnson traded for Dez Bryant. Should it happen? Talk to you in the next one, everybody. We'll see you.